Hola clase. Today we're going to review a new past tense called the imperfect. So far you've only learned one past tense and it was called the preterite, and that was for an action that took place one time. In English we usually add an ed to the verb to denote the past tense in the preterite. So, ¿qué te pasó? What happened to you? Me torcí el tobillo. I twisted my ankle. And now we're going to learn what's called the imperfect. The imperfect is an action that is incomplete or continuous over a period of time. In English, it's usually the used to or was happening. And the endings are pretty easy. You have aba, abas, aba, abamos, abais, and aban for the AR verbs. And the ER and IR verbs are the same. Notice they all have an accent mark, and it's ia, ias, ia, iamos, iais, ian. So the big thing to point out is that the yo form is the exact same as the el, ella, usted. So you more than likely have to clarify. And also the aba, it doesn't end in o like usual. It doesn't follow the regular pattern. So this is how we say I used to sing or I was singing. You used to sing or you were singing. It's cantaba. AR verb, you take off the AR, add the ending, aba, abas, cantabas, cantaba, cantábamos. Notice that the accent mark is on the A only in nosotros, so because they want you to have the stress on that syllable, cantábamos. Otherwise, it would be cantábamos, and that's not where it's supposed to go. So beber y escribir are the IA with an accent mark, even though one's an ER and one's an IR. So bebía is I used to drink or I was drinking. I used to write or I was writing. Okay, so that's how they're translated. The good news is there's only 3 irregular verbs in the imperfect tense. Woohoo! After all those irregular preterite, this is such good news. So they are the verbs ir, which is iba, ibas, iba, ibamos, ibais, iban. So this is I used to go or I was going. Sometimes you could say it would be I would go, depending on what you're saying in English. Era means I used to be, or I was being, or I would be. Era, eras, era, éramos, erais, eran. Ver is veía, veías, veía, veíamos, veíais, veían. So used to see was seeing or would see. Okay? The key words that you want to look for when using the imperfect tense that denotes that it's a habitual or repeated action in the past would be if you want to say as a child. De niño yo montaba en bicicleta mucho. Or todos los días, todos los meses, todos los años. So every day, every month, every year. Or mientras, while. So while something was going on, you would use the imperfect past. A menudo, to say that you used to do something often, or con frecuencia, with frequency in the past, or muchas veces. So with those terms, you would want to use this past tense. So when do we use it? Well, people come up with all kinds of things to try to remember when you have to use this tense in the past, but basically the book is teaching you for habitual repeated actions, events, or actions that were in progress. Yo leía mientras él estudiaba. I was reading while he was studying, telling time, age, physical characteristics, mental or emotional states. And some people come up with little acronyms like weighted or sometimes water for weather, age, time, emotion, and description in the past. And we'll look at each one of these. So weather. You would use hacer like hacía sol. no hacía ni frío ni calor. No hacía viento. Estaba nublado. Because you're describing how it was over a period of time during that day. So you use the imperfect past tense. For age, we always use tenía when you were having that age, like you had that 4 years. So cuando Jeremy y Zach tenían 4 años, jugaban mucho. Cuando tenían 9 años, jugaban al fútbol. So when they were 9 years old, they used to play football. You also always use it for the time or the hour in the past tense. Like you would say, to say it was 9:16 when George arrived to the meeting. Eran las 9:16 cuando Jorge llegó al meeting. So this is denoting that there's this action that was taking place when something else kind of happened or cut that point in time. So obviously he arrived late, eran las 9:16 y Jorge llegó. For emotions in the past tense, you always use this form of estar. So to say that the first day of kindergarten, Jeremy's mom was nervous and he was sad. So el primer día de kindergarten, la mamá de Jeremy estaba nerviosa y él estaba triste. You use the imperfect for emotion. And then descriptions. When you're describing somebody in the past, you would use era, the verb ser, in the past. So like Paul Newman era un actor, because he was an actor over the course of his life. Un actor americano famoso, era rubio y tenía ojos azules. Era guapo y alto. You also see this when you're reading books. It's all over the place because especially when you're setting a mood, like it was a dark and dreary night when the car slid off the road or something jumped out or whatever it was. So, llovía y estaba oscuro cuando Jorge chocó su auto. This is when he crashed his car. So it was raining and it was dark when George crashed his car. So you set the mood with this tense. Again, you could also have 2 simultaneous actions taking place. For example, la profesora leía emails mientras Julio hacía trampas en el examen. So while she was reading her emails, Julio was cheating on the test. Another bit of good news with this tense is there's no stem changes. So if the verb is doler, in the present, it's the O goes to a UE, or sometimes the E goes to IE. Me duelen los pies, or duermo goes to, dormir goes to duermo. Well, not in this tense. There's no stem changes. So you just leave it in O or leave it in E or whatever it's supposed to be. Me dolían los pies anoche. All right, so from the book, this was a little bit of the video. De niña apenas, or casi nunca, that's hardly ever, me enfermaba. So she's saying, when I was a kid, I hardly ever got sick. No me enfermaba, nunca, me enfermaba, okay? Cuando me dolía el estómago, mi mamá me daba té de jengibre. So when my stomach was hurting, my mom would give me ginger tea. So you can see how the translation in English isn't used to, but it's something that happened over and over again in the past. When my stomach used to hurt, my mom used to give me ginger tea. The past tense of the form I is había. So this word was from Spanish 1. It's really important. It means there was or there is or there are. Now in the past tense, it's there was or there were or used to be. So if I say había solo un médico, when I got to the hospital, cuando llegué al hospital, había solo un médico. There was only one doctor. Había dos pacientes allí. There were 2 patients. So some questions. Okay, I'm just going to give you a little activity. So this is just a reading comp. So you're going to see if you understand what you read with your vocabulary from this chapter, and pick whether it's A, B, C, D, E, or F. One isn't going to be used. Go ahead and pause the presentation, and I'll give you the answers on the next slide if you want to write your answers down. Okay, you should have had F. Le dolía la cabeza y el estómago. Tiene fiebre y se quedaba en la cama todo el día. D. Le dolía el estómago y estaba mareado. Tenía ganas de vomitar. So he felt like vomitar. Había muchas personas esperando en la sala de emergencia. Uno con la pierna rota y uno con fiebre, otro con un resfriado, y una señora con el brazo lastimado. All right, so the next one is C. María estaba en el hospital porque se rompió el brazo y se lastimó el cuello. Tenía mucho dolor. La enfermera le daba medicamento muy a menudo. And the last one, E. El médico les dio el resultado de la radiografía del tobillo de su hijo. So it's hopefully not broken. On the next page, if you want to just try to conjugate the verbs that are yellow in the imperfect past tense, go ahead and write your answers. And don't forget the accent marks on the ER and IR verb or the nosotros form of the AR verb. And I'll give you the answers on the next slide. You should have had hacía, comía, estudiábamos, trabajabas, vivía, miraba, jugabas, nadaba, montábamos y mandaba textos. I hope this helps. Reach out if you have any questions.